Hey, welcome back to the podcast, y'all. We have a new episode today. I got the distinct pleasure to meet with a young man who I consider a friend now. Been following him for a few months, been able to talk to him, got to spend some time with him in Puerto Rico at the Creative Investors Networking Group. Really awesome guy. He runs multiple seven-figure businesses. He's a mindset guru. He's a KPI and business operations guru. And just amazing guy to talk to and a really good person. So I'm going to introduce y'all to my friend Sam Singh. All right, Sam. So, we got to hang out and talk in Puerto Rico when you presented at the Creative Investors Network event. How'd you like that?
Dude, it was a damn good time. It was so fun. I love going down to Puerto Rico. It's an amazing area. It's an amazing culture. The people there are phenomenal. And you guys probably had one of the best views I've ever seen for an event, which was pretty baller. But dude, no, it was a phenomenal event. It was a great time to be able to be there and speak to an intimate crowd, right? I think everyone there was no one there who didn't have a ton of intention with why they were there, right? You go to a lot of these events and people are there, they're just kind of they're just, butts in seats sometimes. And but everyone there had a plan. They were all strategic. They all were not just interested in investing in Puerto Rico or, maybe the boutique hotel model or whatever it was. Everyone was there looking to get a very specific thing out of it. And what
Yep.
ended up happening is, especially when I was presenting, because I presented on something that people don't really talk a lot about, I could feel the engagement from everyone and how much energy they were giving. So, dude, I loved it. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So, like, I follow you. Obviously, I follow you on Think Big. You and I talk a lot, but the one thing that you're really known for, right, is marketing and networking. Not marketing, networking, right? And so you talked about that at the Puerto Rico group, and you went through all that. And so let's talk about that. What made you get into the networking side of the real estate business, right? What drove you to do that?
Well, I think, well, truthfully, if I have one superpower, it really is marketing and sales more than anything. That's why I like to do like marketing secrets. But, from a networking perspective, I think that people, I think everyone pushes networking, right? There's that old saying like, your network is your net worth and all that kind of good stuff. And I think that people go to network for the sake of networking. And, then there's people who like are intentional and they come in with a series of questions or desired outcome, right? And I see that that's great and that's better than just being in a room. But I'm huge on studying the best in the world. And what I've realized is there's people who network, they get into a room for the sake of getting around the right people. Then there's the right guys who they own the freaking room. It's their room, right? So they're controlling the networking, they're controlling the outcomes for everybody. And what I've realized is there's such a phenomenal leverage to it. And what I've realized is networking results in leverage more than anything else. And especially in this next stage for me, where, we're scaling some businesses and we're going to be probably launching at least one or two more businesses in the next like year, some really big ones that we think they'll easily hit seven figures in the first year. The real key to that is, dude, it's having the right people. Because it's like, as one person, you can only do so much, right? And
Hell yeah.
I mean, you've got a really big, established TC company that has, I mean, I can only imagine the amount of moving parts and how many contracts you guys are involved in. And, just it's bonkers, right? And
Yeah.
it's a people intensive business. And so it's like, if you don't have the right partners helping you operate the business the right way, it would be a losing endeavor all day. So my whole thing is, can we get into the right rooms, not only to meet the right people and to find the next series of partners, but also getting to the next stage of how can we own the room? How can we craft the room ourselves? And then it's our environment, right? Because then you take intentionality to a exponential level once you do that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you hit on something very big there. Like, people will just pay to join a room or be in a room, thinking that just being in that room is going to make them rich. It's going to make them wealthy. It's going to make them learn something, but they're not in the room. You know what I mean? Like, they don't actually, like you said, they don't network. They don't have an intention behind it. And that's a very key. I know going to Squad Up Summit, you put out the how to network intentionally uh video and all that. And it was or not video, it was a post, and it was interesting. And I used that a lot whenever I was talking to people. And making sure I took pictures with them, making sure we're swapping cars, making sure we're doing to dos at that moment and not, oh, I'll hit you up next week, because next week never happens, right? Nobody ever remembers to do it next week. So
Bro,
that was
I love that. The amount of okay, so I'm in a point where just about upgrading leverage, right? You guys are phenomenal. I believe in so much of what you guys are doing, especially after seeing the event in Puerto Rico. I was like, oh my God, anything that Jen, Irving, Jay are involved in, like I want to be able to just, be a fly on the wall because I believe in you guys so much. And then it's funny you mentioned the next week. That's my excuse that I give to pretty much everyone who asked me to be on a podcast. And like I haven't seen a track record of success. I haven't seen a track record of intentionality from them. Like, oh, I'm so sorry, guys. I'm kind of I'm in a hiatus. I'm not traveling. I've got to be on a plane. Let's chat next week. Next week never comes. Next week is a lie. And if you keep saying next week, you're like, Sam, well, I actually mean it. You just haven't realized. I want you to go back and audit all the times you said that and how many times did next week actually show up. And it's probably going to
yep.
be less than 50%. So 100%, dude. And that's the thing. And I'm actually getting to a point now where, my best friend, his name's Marlon Johnson, Mindset Marlon. He's a fantastic human being. And he and I kind of have this, we're just kind of at this season now where it comes down to networking. And, we're not always going to be the one to throw the event because there's a lot of work in throwing an event, right? We're kind of getting to a point where we won't go to an event unless we're speakers, because anything less is very often we don't get the leverage that we need, in terms of opportunity cost. And that's another big thing, right? That people are negating, in my opinion, is understanding opportunity cost. It's like there is a cost, not just financially, to go and be a part of a room or be at a mastermind. There's also a cost in the fact that you didn't stay home, didn't work on the business, didn't hire the right person in that time, and you got distracted having a kumbaya moment with your friends. And don't get me wrong, like I have friends who crush, make way more money than I do, and I love hanging out with them. But unless we're making money together, like I have to spend some time and get some distance because there's an opportunity cost. And just because you make more money than me and I can learn from you doesn't mean it's going to pay the bills. It doesn't mean that it's going to grow my business. You know what grows the business? Staying locked in, focused on money-making activities and increasing your leverage in your business.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I think that people don't realize is having those kumbaya moments are amazing, but they need to be for that. You don't mix kumbaya and business. Those are those things that you do when you are feeling burnt out, when you need a break, you need to disconnect. It was funny because I've been, because I ain't gonna say I've been to all of them, right? I'm starting my career and you've been at it for a few years. So you're at that, like you said, you're in that season where you don't have to do it, you don't need to do it. And I'm still learning that whole thing. And so I know, like, whenever we were at Squad Up, right, watching people network is great. Watching people try to conduct business while networking, while trying to listen, you can't do all three. And I think you're right. I think that it causes a problem with your business and your overall mentality of how you're doing things. Like I tried to be there to learn. And then, so I'd spend half the time learning and then half time in the hallways networking. I don't think I touched a file. I think I helped on a file to the back. I think I helped on a file of yours. I think I helped January for a minute. But other than that, I really didn't work. Like I was like, guys, I'll deal with it when I get back. And we have a team. So I just told our team, hey, you need to take care of this. Hey, can you follow up on this? And it was pretty much from my phone, just sending a message saying, hey, can you check this? So yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think I'm getting there where it's like I've been in those rooms and learned, like, I've spoke. That was not planned. We had to speak at Puerto Rico, and it was because the lawyer that was supposed to speak with Jennifer didn't show up or canceled like that morning. She's like, hey, you're going up there. I was like, sure, let's figure this out. We'll figure it out. So it was good. It was a good time to learn. But, you really hit on it, and I don't want to get out too much because, like you said, you've got things coming about, and we talked about that. So I don't want to go too much. But the whole thing about giving away things for free, right? And I know you follow Alex Hormozy, and I've been listening to his book and everything. And that's one of his big pillars is like, how much free value can you give so that when you do have an ask, right, you have given up so much that people are willing to be there. And you see that all around with all of our mentors. We're in the same groups. Like you see how much they give and then how much they barely ask for. But when they do, they get flooded, right, with the help. And so, how are you trying to build your business around that model, so to speak?
Well, I want to speak on that for a second, and I love it, dude. The reality is, I do these things called master classes, are kind of like the thing that I love doing, and I don't think anyone. And I'm gonna speak with a little bit of an ego here. I don't think anyone does them the way that I do them, and I don't think anyone delivers the value that I do with them. And the reason why is because I'm the only guy who's not selling some shit on the back end. And what I've realized is that when you do have something to sell, you have to limit the value when you do things for free, right?
Yep.
Because
Yeah.
otherwise
Yeah.
you can't justify giving away stuff that people are paying for, right? And the world of being an influencer and a guru and a coach and all these things, it's becoming more and more expensive. You've seen it. You're in a high level program that I pay 25 grand. I just heard it went up in cost. It's like 30K now. I think you guys are in that program. And I'm like, and these things are becoming more and more and more expensive. And the reason why is there's inflation, there's more competition in the marketplace, or less the established people are furthering their moat in their business so they can charge more money. And what I'm realizing is that I look at all of these, and they're all my friends, right? I love those guys. I love those influencers. I love those coaches or gurus. Like, I love them to death. They're my friends. And I've got a really good intimate working knowledge of understanding like the business behind the business. And I see how they do it. And we talk about these things. And my one big thing right now is just understanding that there is a pro and a con to doing it. One, you can make a lot of money. You can make a ton of money doing it, which is great. That being said, right now for the season that I'm in and for the foreseeable future, one, I hate the idea of coaching. I hate it. I hate the idea of the second in me. I don't know if something's about me where if the second that you pay me a dime, I feel like you own me and I can't do that. I am so anti someone owning me right now that like I just want my freedom. But two, it's when people start doing that, right? When I see my friends who are coming up and they make the leap to doing products and services and coaching and this, that, and the other, what ends up happening is they enter new money, but they also enter new stress, right? And they're like, now we have to fulfill. Now we have contractual obligations. Now you have the SEC, you know, or the SEC paying attention to what you're doing because you're making, sorry, not SEC, FTC. You have the FTC paying attention to the claims that you're making online when you're promising people like, that they can make money and this, that, and the other. And what ends up happening is I see these guys who are honestly bottlenecking themselves a little bit. I think it's a short-term win at a long-term loss. And I think this, man, um, I want them all to do it. I want everyone to go and do some high ticket coaching and charge people, their life savings to teach them how to freaking scale a business to 1 million. Like, do it. Because when you do it, and I do it, but I do it 10 times better than you, and I do it for free with no expectation, the person who gets the leverage, right? This all comes back to leverage. The person who gets the leverage of the room is me. And what I've realized is this: a lot of these guys, they do the coaching because they have this exponential idea about like, I can get 100 people to pay me 30 grand. It's a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. It is tons of money. But what you don't have, and something you and I connect a lot on, is you don't necessarily have a lot of goodwill. And I'm a firm believer that goodwill is the most compounding resource on earth right now. And in a world where every guru, every coach, every mentor, no matter how damn good they are, they all keep selling. And every time they sell, they burn goodwill. There's a reason why Alex Hormozi, don't get me wrong, has been making content for 4 or 5 years. But this dude astronomically just showed up out of nowhere, I would say about 2 years ago, right? 2 years ago, he just showed up out of nowhere. And then within a year, he became, in my opinion, the best business entrepreneur influencer in the world. Like, I don't think there's anyone who can touch him, what he's done and what he's doing. Because he's 34 years old, making over 200 million a year. And what he's done is astronomical. And what I've seen is that one, he's got a credibility package that no one can touch and no one can take away from him. And then two, look at the game of leverage that he's playing, right? He's like, I'm gonna teach everyone in my audience to be a 7-figure earner for free, completely for free, just so that when they're ready to get to 8 figures or 9, they'll come to me. Think about the compound effect of that, the leverage that he has stacked, right? And it's predicated in his understanding that nothing compounds more than goodwill. So right now, man, I'm just in a season where I don't want to do coaching. I don't want to roll out a product. All my influencer buddies, when they see my master classes, so marketing secrets, I'll shed some light here publicly, which I probably shouldn't do, but it's okay. That was the most viral. It was the most successful from a KPI metric masterclass I've ever done. It was huge. And there was no paid advertising for it at all. There was about a week and a half of advertising through my Instagram stories, and that's it. And there was very minimal advertising. Like I didn't even openly tell anyone what was going to happen. It was very like subtle, sneaky marketing that just like you knew something was happening. You had no freaking clue what it was.
Yep.
And for a guy with as small of a following as I did at that time, like, dude, we within about a week and a half got almost 1,000 people registered, and we held 591 people on average for 5.5 hours. And it's like, I know influencers who have 250,000 followers who can't put up those numbers. And the reality and the reason why is goodwill. Why do people stay on? Because they know I'm not going to push a $20,000 product down their throat after, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
so, how much more can I do that? My influencer buddy's like, dude, you did that and you sold a package, a product, or a coaching, something, you would have made 7 figures. I'm like, yeah, I would have, but it'd be a one-time burn. And the reality is the next time you try to do it, it's not going to convert. Your conversion goes down in half and then in half again. And then what's going to end up happening is you burned all this goodwill, and it's going to take you 2 years to build it back up again. Because now you're no different than the world of gurus. So I'm having fun playing this game, dude. And it's funny because like I have all my buddies and I have some friends and some pseudo friends who are influencers and coaches, and they're kind of annoyed because they're hoping that people don't find me. And because I'm like, dude, I'm just gonna put you out of business. If your prospects, the people that you're prospecting to, come across my Instagram, like your $20,000 coaching program, it's done. And here's the thing. I don't mean it to be, aggressive to anyone. I love everybody. But the reality is this is like my North Star, right? My guiding light.
Yep.
I kind of view it as this. I kind of view it as like, I was raised by a single mom, and I'm like, what program should she have joined? And what program would have taken care of her or taken advantage of her? And the reality is the ones that all have a price structure usually are intentionally trying to take advantage. And I'm like, let me just create something so all the single mothers out there who don't have money because they're raising 3-4 kids in the ghetto, right? They can escape poverty. Let's show them the route. And so right now, dude, it's the people that I want to take care of. And I'm having a damn good time doing it. And the good thing is because the businesses behind the scenes are doing so well, like we're doing really well in wholesaling, we're doing really well in all these other companies that I have some equity in. And I'm just like, I can play the long game. I don't have to make scarcity-based decisions. And for everyone that's coming up who's gonna inevitably watch this, there's gonna be a time when if you're naturally growing and you're speaking on stages where the next phase seemingly is to start selling stuff, to take that attention and monetize on it. And you can, don't get me wrong, but I challenge everyone to not burn the goodwill. Challenge everyone to not come out with shit products. Challenge everyone to think bigger and think like, how can we be a little bit more like Alex and Layla Hermosi, right? How can we help people to make a ton more money so that when they're ready, we can make more money together? Instead of how do you go into credit card debt buying my crap? And so, dude, it's my North Star right now, and I'm having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, I like that. I watched Killer KPIs. I watched Marketing Secrets. I watched all those, and you're right. I was on there. I don't think I was on quite 5.5 hours because I had to do something with my wife, and I liked watching it, but she kind of trumps a little bit, so she needed me to go somewhere. But it was very good, and like you said, it was very genuine. And I'm not saying any because I'm in all these groups, right? I'm not saying they're not genuine. It's just you're right. There was never a moment where I was like, you know what, he's about to sell me something, or he's about to talk about go buy this, go buy that, and it was more about, hey, here's a link, download this for free and follow along. And it's the same thing you use in your business. So you're not showing us something that you want to sell that you're not even using, right? Which is and none of ours that I'm in any groups I'm in, I don't see that, but there are groups that I've been on, those free webinars, and you get to the end, it's like, I don't think you use this form and your business is worth multi-million-dollars and you're using an Excel spreadsheet. Come on now. For those type of people. For you, I get it. I understand because I'm now in this same group you did. You talked to me about a group and I went to it, did everything in it, and I'm having so much fun learning from them on the business side of the things. And so that's really good. And so as we go through and look at, future, like you were saying, you are building goodwill because you give so much away, right? And you plan to do that forever. But what's really good is eventually, I think that a lot of the people who have to sell courses and things like that, they get asked for so much at a certain point, they don't say no, but they say if they're going to say yes, how are they monetizing that time? Because they are pulling themselves away from the business, right? And so what does that look like in your thought process for you in the future? Because I ask you a ton of questions myself, so I'm sure I'm not the only one who's hitting up Sam and going, "Hey, Sam, question," you know? So,
Yeah,
what
yeah,
would
dude. I love it, dude. And so here's the thing. I'm very unabashed with this. Like my goal in life is minimum in terms, and it's funny, people think it's the goal. It's not the goal. Like it's actually just a side effect. The side effect that I'm chasing is I become a billionaire. And
Yep.
and not it's not going to take me 20 years to do it. I mean, that's the key. And the reality is also understanding from a long-term perspective that there's a lot of billionaires in the world. And it's probably now easier than ever before in history to become a billionaire. And if you're like me and you're a kid in his 20s and you've got a long runway in front of you, right? You've got a lot of potential. And we're at this kind of amazing moment with like an AI revolution and technology, astronomically being able to grow us. I'm very big on understanding the infinite game that we have to play to get to that $1 billion kind of net worth and $1 billion enterprise. And I think what it does is you mentioned this spending your time. Like, what do you spend your time doing? Like critically and being discerning with it. And so, just kind of like a little bit of an anecdote, we interviewed me and Logan Manzanares, who's a big brother to me. I adore him. We have a podcast called The Origin Story. We haven't done it in a while because we have this agreement that we're not going to do it unless we have like world changers on there. And so, one of the most recent, amazing human beings we had was a former shark from Shark Tank named Matt Higgins. And so this, if anyone watches Shark Tank, it's one of my favorite shows out there. It's like those billionaires that, are being pitched. Hey, we got to interview one of them for like an hour and a half. It was amazing. And we did it live in front of a few hundred people too, which was epic. And Matt said something that will never, it's just etched into my brain now. Because here's a guy he's partnering with like Kim Kardashian in business. Like he's legitimately a business partner with her. And I'm just like, God dang, this guy doesn't really do coaching. He's not, shoving these crap products. He just has he has equity in some of the biggest, best brands and businesses out there. I'm like, how did that happen? How do you get to a point where you have justified that as an end result? And he kept saying this phrase and he said, Sam, you have to be cerebral with your time. And basically, you have to be an assassin with your time, right? You have to be a mercenary with your time. And it was almost offensive. It was almost aggressive with it. And then I started realizing, I'm like, dude, I'm giving so much time away and I love giving time away to people, but I can't give any more one-on-one to people. I can't give more unless the receiving, not just to me, but to my people, to my family, to my loved ones, to my employees, my partners, is tenfold of what I give. And so now I think the game is this, dude, is just always I do this every quarter. Every quarter I do this, every task that I do in any business. What is my leverage multiplier to it? For the inputs that I put in, for every 1 unit of input, whether that's time, whether that's money, whether it's me sitting down, whatever it is, what is my input and what is the correlating output? And you're always going to find ratios. It's like 1 to 5, 1 to 15, 1 to 20. And what's going to happen is this. Do this every quarter, guys. It's huge. You'll find that your highest is a 1 in 5. And you have a bunch of 1 and 2s. What do you do with those 1 and 2s? You do everything you can to hire that shit out and spend all of your time doing 1 to 5s. What's going to end up happening next quarter? You're going to have a bunch of 1 to 5s and then one that's a 1 to 10. And keep doing this. Be cerebral with this. Be unapologetic with this. It's going to piss people off because they lose access to you. And so for me, it's actually really kind of funny because I just went on a social media cleanse and I unfollowed probably about 200 to 250 people. And they're all people that I've realized I have zero leverage with. And there's people that I love, that I adore, but I'm like, I need this back. I need the potency back. I need to leverage the attention, my bandwidth back so I can focus on growing businesses, upgrading and developing myself so that I can be worthy of the next big thing. Because like right now, I have a couple businesses that do 7 figures a year. What do I not have? An 8-figure business yet. Not a single one, right? So what do I have to do? I have to stop spending my time working with 5-figure people, 6-figure people. I love them and I want them to win. It's why I do my master classes. So I can give to them, but I give to them one time, 5, 6, 7 hours. And then I have to reclaim that energy to go tackle the next monster. And then I can get to 8 figures, right? And I'm going to spend a lot of time in that 8-figure club until we get to 9. And then the grand thing is, how do we go from 9 to 10, either in revenue, in net worth, whatever it is. But I've come to a conclusion, or I've come to kind of this epiphany that it's not going to happen doing the shit that I was doing when I was going from 0 to 100K or 100K to 500,000. We have to keep upgrading. And that's the one thing that I think people are afraid to do. I think it's uncomfortable. I think you lose friends. I think you piss people off. But if your mission is big enough and strong enough, it is a requirement. And that's the big thing. So I look at people who are, I'm going to use this phrase, and I don't mean it offensively, but it's true. People who have a weaker mission, right? Sometimes people, they just like want to vibe. That's it. It's like, want to make good money. And like, that's it. Easy. The reality is you're making 20, 30 grand a month. Like, you can live pretty much however the heck you want to for the most part, right? You may not have a yacht, but you're going to like live comfortably. You will probably not have a problem in life. Now, that's fine. I have like, there's a reason why like I adore guys like Mindset Marlin. His goal is to affect change in the mindsets of like minimum 7 billion people. That is a big mission. It's a big mission. It's a big purpose, right? He can't do that doing low leverage shit. The requirement is so high. And so for me, I have two great whys in life, right? We always talk about whys. I think everyone kind of defaults their family being their why. And I have no problem with that, right? That should always be there. But my two big whys outside of family, one, I want to have the greatest animal sanctuary of all time. That's like a big thing for me. Growing up, Steve Irwin, Crocodile Hunter, was one of my heroes. And like, I'll never forget the day that he passed away. Like, I was like going through like a little kid. Sam was so depressed that day. And so one of my big missions is to have one of the greatest animal sanctuaries ever. And then two, to create an organization that combats human trafficking on the front lines more than just like fundraising, right? So like guys like Tim Ballard is from Operation Underground Railroad. He heads the Spear Fund now. And like these guys are boots on the ground, taking the fight to some of the worst human beings on earth. And I'm like, and I realized, man, to be successful in those missions, I can't do that shit making $250,000 a year. Can't even do it making $1 million a year. I have to have so much, not just income, but you know what else I have to have? I have to have connections and resources with other people who can move mountains. And the difficulty with those people, those world changers, they don't hang around in small masterminds. They're hard to get a hold of. It's hard to earn their time. So it's like I'm entering the season where I have to say no to a lot. I've probably said no this year. I have 20 like speaking engagements on stage this year, and I'm turning away everything else. And I'm probably going to turn away a few of them and just like say, hey, sorry, I can't do this right now. Why? Because I have to say no so I can focus on developing myself so I can earn the right to be in better spots.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. And thank you for being on our podcast, because you could have said no very easily. But I will say, like, that's the thing that I've always learned. So I'm older than you. I'm 41. And so I've grown up through the ranks of starting as a small person going all the way to the C-suite, right? And so you epitomately are saying dress for the job you want, right? So you're saying dress for the life you want. And you're at a point now where 5-figure, 6-figure, great, bring them along with you, but you're not in that room anymore. That's what I love about, like you said, your masterminds. You're intentionally working with people versus letting them bother your time, right? Because people don't understand, if you go, hey, you have a minute, and I'm a nice guy and you're a nice guy, and we go, yeah, sure, I got a minute. You've now delayed me 2 hours because I've got to stop what I'm doing, talk to you, process everything I said, then I've got to get back to what I was doing. But to do that, I got to remember where I was and what my train of thought was. And so that's what's interesting to me, is like, you did put on a 5-hour mastermind. I think your other one was like 3.5, 4 hours, and nobody batted an eye. Everybody stayed. Everybody watched. Nobody paid $1. They just paid some sweat equity with their time, and it was good because you got to talk to 596. Is that what you said? 597 people.
Yeah, Marketing Secrets at 591. Insane.
Yeah, and you didn't have to do one-on-ones. They all got it. You know what I'm saying? They all got it. And what's good is, like, in talking with you, like learning about how your automation is and things like that, I'm sure there's ways that you could say, if they and I know there is, if they DM you a question, it'll just answer it because you got it built out and you're good to go. Not saying you do that because I don't think you do that yet, but
No,
I'm
no,
sure.
if I did, then people would actually get DMs back from me. My big thing is like I'm a horrible texter and a horrible DMer. So people like, Sam, I texted you 3 months ago, and I'm like, it's about another 2.5 months on average to get a response. And dude, and here's the thing, right? I feel so indebted to all the people who are just getting started because I remember being just like them, and I remember spending all the money that I didn't have on credit buying the shit that gurus told me to buy. And I love those people. The reason why is even if they don't realize it, they're most of them usually are doing it for someone other than themselves. They're doing it for family. They're doing it for their wives, their kids. And like, I can't help but love that about them. And I want to help them. And the reality is this, there's just so many people that are just getting started that need the help. And I can't give them my time individually. So now the game is, it's so funny, man. I'm gonna send you this later. It's a phenomenal video by Hermosi, and it's about the difference between being a maker and a manager. And the reality is, in different seasons of your entrepreneurial journey, most of the time you're gonna be a manager because a manager is the guy who gets the bills paid, right?
Right.
Eventually, you'll get to a season where the brand has grown. Your job is to be the face of things. Your job is to market, be a marketer, right? And then you have to do what are known as maker activities. And maker activities, man, I'll tell you right now, creative shit is hard. It's hard. I'm not a creative human being. But like my marketing material is phenomenal. It always goes viral. It always does really well. But the reality of what goes into that, dude, I can spend 8 hours just trying to creatively come up with like a new strategy or a new post or a new whatever to click the right way. But the reality is when it does, that 8 hours gets me connected to 1,000 people, 2,000 people, 3,000 people, right? And that's the game that I have to start playing now is we have to start saying no to the one-on-ones. We have to start, and this is the reason why I don't do coaching or the small groups or this, that, and the other. And we have to say, how can I, if I'm going to spend my time doing it, if I'm going to spend my time building something to help someone, how can I help not one person, but 10,000? And the in the business right now, it's cool. I've in this, I'm taking a social media break. I kind of like announced this yesterday. And then ironically, I even said there, like, I'm going to be largely unreachable. And I got like 150 DMs, like asking me questions. I'm like, guys, like, what the hell? With my business partners and my directors, they all kind of know that this next season for me is you can't have access to me right now. You can't. Because if I am going to help all the people that I want to help, then honestly, no one can have access. And that's a huge thing. And it took me a very long time to be able to have the confidence to go and do that and say no the way that I have to say no now. But what I'm realizing is, man, I move the needle more in a day now being a maker and a creator than I did in a week or a month of being a manager. And that's the game, dude. That's the game. And I'm aggressively learning how to pay down my ignorance debt and to also unlock new leverage. And so now we're at I'm coming up on my 3-year mark of being in entrepreneurship, which I'm super stoked on. This November will be 3 years in. And I've now spent $159,000 on mentorships and masterminding. And this year, I'll probably spend another 118 in new mentorships and new masterminding. And here's what's cool. Neither of those are about really, they're not really even about CEO development or business development. They're all about how can we reach 1 million people, but not like reach 1 million people so we can sell them on shit. How can we reach 1 million people to show them the way in a massive way? And that's the game that I get to play, man. And like, it's so rewarding and it's so fun. And, Alex Hormozi is teaching everyone how to get to 7 figures so then he can eventually help them get to 8 or 9. Right. And I want to do a lot of that too. But what I'm now kind of getting to a point of is like, how do I help everyone not just get to 7 figures? How do I help show them how to be complete business owners, right? And be removed from the business. Like making $1 million is fine. Like it's great. But the reality is people don't realize the amount that you usually have to work to get to 1 million is brutal. Like you have no life outside of the business. But what if I can show you how to make 1 million and have all of your time back so you can spend it with your family? So you can spend all of your time and your energy chasing your why and your purpose and your mission, right? And so for me, the game that like I'm now playing, I realized this the other day, is is I'm studying for I'm huge on this. A lot of people don't know this. The first time I've ever said this publicly. I love studying Greek mythology. That's like it's a thing that I nerd out on, right? And one of the greatest Greek heroes in an epic poem is Achilles, the hero of the Trojan War. And one thing about Achilles is he had this effectively like the first great spec ops team. They were known as the Myrmidons, right? And the one
Mhm.
thing that brought them to him, and like there was like this rigorous process, and he only had a handful of them. And effectively, they were the greatest, like, 30, 40 man arm, like mini army into this massive war, right? And the one thing that brought everyone to him, and like one of the key differentials with them wasn't their combat ability, it was how obsessed were they with glory or changing the world or making sure that their death actually meant something for generations past. And it was he found people who were not on a financial mission, let's just say like a combat mission, let's just like take over and kill people. He found people who were on this like, how do we do something that's eternal? And so now I'm really quickly realizing who around me is doing this just to pay the bills next month, and they want to make a million so they can pay the bills. Great. And then I'm like, who else wants to, stop human trafficking? Who else wants to go and fight the fight against terrorism? Who is obsessed with affecting mindset change in 7 billion people's brains? And those people are the people that, like, man, I want to help them the most. Because if I help them, they're going to help millions. And that ripple effect, dude, it's something that like I have completely fallen in love with.
Love it, love it. Yeah, I'm definitely with you there. I think that that's one of the questions that I was going to ask is when so you run two huge businesses and you've kind of stepped out of the day to day, right? Like I think we talked about that. You still follow the numbers, you still track your KPIs because that's what you do as a maker. But when do you get to that point? Like, how did you know? Okay, now it can't be a money number. It can't be a value number or I made so much this month, right? It's got to be a time in that business or that season that you go, you know what? I need to step away for two reasons. One, to do the making ability, but two, the business may grow more if I take myself out of it because I don't have that selfishness, right? Or that big head to say, and not that you do, but that big head to go, I got to be right and I got to do this, and it's not going to be right without me. Like where did you get? When did you get to that feeling in your businesses?
Dude, I love that you said that. That's not going to be right without me. You, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, you have to eventually come to a decision whether you want to be right or you want to win. And the reality is, very often, those two aren't the same. You can either be right and make a lot of money, or you can win and make infinitely more and do something infinitely more powerful. And winning is all based on leveraging the systems, processes, and other people. Like that's the game. It doesn't matter if you're the best in the game, because 20 people who are half as good as you will still outperform you every day of the week. And so for me, man, I think the big thing was we came completely honestly from poverty. And so like when I first started making money, there was like this feeling of like, oh my God, I'm making money, but it's because of me. And it's like, I don't want to step away because if I step away, like I'm protecting it, right? And it got to a point where I had to have this upfront contract with myself that it's like I haven't talked to a seller in 2 years. And and I honestly forgot how to talk to sellers. Like you can't even ask me how to close a seller. I have no clue. Haven't done it. And the reality though is when we started hiring closers, I had to make this upfront expectation and contract with myself, not just the other guys, but with me. And I had to like come to this internal acceptance that it doesn't matter how big the paycheck is. Could have been a $30,000 deal, a $40,000 deal. A lot of people are afraid of hiring someone because like, man, what if that person screws it up and I lose a 40K deal, right? The
Yep.
answer is lose the 40K deal and learn the lesson. Don't step in. You step in, you have allowed yourself to come back to solve the problem. And so it took me a while to come to this kind of internal contract that I'm going to have a closer and eventually they're going to have a $30,000 opportunity that they're going to fail on. And I know I can crush. And no matter what, you have to let it die because the lesson has to be learned by the people in the business, right? I can't have that closer develop the way they need to develop unless I put it in their face that they just lost a $30,000 deal. Because if I go in and salvage it and we get the deal, there's no consequence. right? And
Nope.
you can't develop internally without consequence. So for me, dude, the game is this. I have now accepted that every time we hire someone or we bring on a partner or a director, they're gonna suck in the beginning. And that is okay. And it's an expectation. And we've just gotten so good to the point, man, where we've gotten so good at this, where we know you're gonna suck and we're gonna give you every resource humanly possible for you to succeed. And then we're going to pour everything we can into you to develop and develop skill sets. And my number one goal, dude, is making sure that all of my directors, all of my partners are as developed as I am, if not more. And like that's what I'm like also obsessed with now is I take excuses away from my team. My team has no ability to ever say like, hey, we don't, like some other team has access to something that we don't have all the tools, we don't have the education. I spent 159 grand. Like we've got everything there is. And so what I do then is I take away their excuses of not having something because it's a natural human response to like suck at something and be like, well, oh, that guy has it. I don't. Cool. If I give it to you, what have I done? I've taken away that option, right? Now it's a how good are you thing. And then that's our baseline. Once that's our baseline, we can really start working on your skill set. And that's the big thing, dude. We literally have an executive assistant right now who's a VA, virtual assistant. And this person has been with us maybe for about a couple months now in the Philippines. And she is probably more skilled than most American real estate investors that I know. And our goal is for her to be as competent as a wholesaler running probably $250,000 a year business. And she's a virtual assistant overseas. And we're just taking away excuses. We're just pouring into this person. And the cool thing is, dude, you find the right talent, the right people who have the right wiring in their brain, you can turn them into just phenoms.
Yep. And that's the hard part, and that's the challenge. A lot of people want to hire people with skill. A lot of people want to hire people who've done this for years and all that. And it's like, that's great. Give me somebody that wants to succeed and is willing to do whatever it takes, and they'll be better than anybody who's done it for 10 years because they have that want and that drive where I think you get to a point in life if you are only going based on what you've done, you have no more drive. Like it's what are you going to do? Because I love that old adage, it's what have you done for me today, not what you do yesterday. And I think that's how you have to be in the mentality when you hire people is they're always going to want to be 1% better. They're always going to want to do good work because we can do great work for one day. But if we're not trying to strive to do good work every single day, what's the point, right? Why have
Dude,
all I'm not going to get me?
it's something that I've like realized unintentionally that I've been doing, and I realize it now. Um, when we hire people, when we're looking, and like, dude, one of my companies has, I think we're at like 20 employees now, in a second company, and we're constantly hiring people. But for people who are decision makers, directors, managers, and partners, I'm really big on having people who have a chip on their shoulder. Something happened in their life. They've got something that drives them that's more than just wanting to make money. Because I mean, it's easy to make money, but the guys who have a chip on their shoulder, they're the ones who will stay up till 3 a.m. obsessively to get the shit done, right? They're the ones who like there is no other option because they've got something to prove to someone or to themselves. I don't care who it is. I just want to see that you have it. You see those people, they're the ones who dominate everything. And my thought process is how do I find that pool of talent? How do I put together a ton of young badasses who all have a chip on their shoulder, who all have something to prove or someone to prove wrong? Because that shit's powerful. And then how
That's a
do I
good
give them everything humanly possible? How do I give them every resource, every bit of access, every education to arm these people? And then simultaneously build a filthy freaking culture. Like build a culture that is obsessive. You do that, I think you can crush anything. And that's
point.
it's another fun game that I'm playing, dude. And it's like you kind of feel like sometimes you kind of get this feeling of like being Achilles and finding the myrmidons, and that's it's like just kind of the next mission for me.
That's awesome, man. Well, Sam, in the interest of time and not to steal a lot of yours, I don't have any more questions. Do you have anything you want to close with or any kind of insight to add to end it on? Drop that little nugget for everybody.
Yeah, this is a big mission for me, and I want everyone to take this in as much as they can, depending on where they're at in their lives right now in their businesses. There's an epidemic in our industry, and you've seen this The epidemic in our industry, in all of entrepreneurship, is to show people or to put the focus on making the next check, on doing deals. And what ends up happening is I know tons of guys who do tons of deals and they're still working 80 hours a week in their business and have no freedom. And they have no growth potential because they are locked in, right, to this extremely high paying job. And, in the W-2 life, there's people who work paycheck to paycheck. In the real estate world, there's people who live assignment to assignment, right? And so right now, there is this epidemic where so many people have been lied to and they've been taught to do deals, and that deals equals wealth. The reality is it doesn't. What ends up creating wealth, creating opportunity, creating growth is being obsessed with not identifying as a real estate investor. It comes from identifying as a business owner, because an owner prioritizes process, leverage, systems, other people. An owner gets to increase not just their quality of life, but the quality of life of everyone around them, right? A ton of broke ass wholesalers. A ton of them. And they're the guys who are doing 20 deals a month and half the deals fall through and they're broke the next month. I want everyone to create something special because we're all in this for more than just doing deals. And we can't do that unless we focus on being owners. So for everyone, no matter where you're at, if you're beginning, it's okay. You can start thinking like a business owner. If you're advanced and you know how to crush deals, if you are working more than 5 hours a week in your business, you are not a business owner. I don't give a shit what you say. The reality is we all need to become obsessed with that, because as soon as we do that, we can help so many more people. But that's it, man. That's my huge thing.
Sam, I appreciate it, man. Again, thank you for coming on. And hopefully we'll get to, crush it together somewhere down the line.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me, dude. Such an honor.
Thanks, buddy.